Okay, so last night I finished The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. Thank you, Mom, for buying this book for me. I read this years ago, and I remember finishing the book and still like wondering, yeah, why did they kill themselves? So I don't really remember much of the plot or what happens in the book, but I just remember having that feeling of not knowing why they actually killed themselves. And reading it now that I'm old, mature, I sort of now understand why they killed themselves. But the interesting thing is, so this is a story about five girls who take their lives, right? And we're viewing their story from the perspective of the teenage boys who are in love with them. So it was all their narratives. Everything they tell here is we can't really validate because they're the ones telling the story, and we don't get any information from the girls themselves. So it's all the proof or the receipts that they get from interviews or even like medical tests that they were able to gather during their research about the girls. So they're really captured by these five girls and wondering why they killed themselves. And actually, I've read a lot of Goodreads reviews that say, "Hey, I would have appreciated this book more if it was in the perspective of the girls, so I can understand why they killed themselves." So I'm like, that is not the point of this book. The point of this book is basically there are a lot of evidence why they wanted to kill themselves. But in the end, the people here don't understand it, why they did that. And if you as a reader, you don't understand why they killed themselves, that means you have overlooked a lot of things in this book. This is written very beautifully. The book starts with the last death, and then it flashes back to the first suicide. And then you would like read a narrative that seems like it's not related to the story, but then later on the author would tell you something, and then you would figure out why he told you this long story, or why did he preface that with that kind of long story first. Okay, sometimes I like that when the author did that, but there are times when I feel like it's too much, and that is why I'm giving it 4 stars. But it is overall very well written. So I'm done with this book. Look at that. It makes me so happy when I see my annotations. Like, yeah. Okay. Okay, yesterday I read 2 books. One of them is Macbeth. This is a reread. I first read it back in university and I annotated it this second time around. And I particularly love this tragedy. So tragedy ends in death. Comedies end in marriage. Okay. I particularly love this one because it tackles a topic that I'm very interested in, and that is what happens if you know what the future holds for you. Macbeth is a soldier. He receives 2 predictions from the witches, 2 fortunes. They said he will become a Dane of Cawdor and he will become king. So at first he laughed at these predictions because how can I be a Dane of Cawdor if that guy is still alive and I'm already Dane of Glamis? And he even laughed more at the king part. And then he receives news that the original Dane of Cawdor, betrayed the king, and so he was sentenced to death. And now his title is to be given to Macbeth. And when he found out that the first fortune has already, like, it came true, he thought about the second one, becoming king. And he told his wife this as well. And then something, the evils of humankind, like he wanted to be king immediately. So he decided to take matters into his own hands and he decided to kill the king. Well, at first he was hesitant, but then his wife was like, do it. And the king was going to sleep over to their place that one night. And then Macbeth is like, okay, I'm going to kill him now with this dagger. And he did. And after he did it, he was actually like so guilty of what he did that he was so panicked. He took the dagger with him when his wife said to leave the dagger in his room so that we can blame the servants that came with him. when he arrived here in our place. So yeah, Macbeth was like all over the place after he did the deed, because he's actually a really good person. He's a good soldier. He fights for his king, but then that fortune just kind of messed him up a little bit. And so yeah, that happened. Eventually he became king. But then when he became king, people got suspicious, okay, about what really happened, though they don't have any proof. But one of them, Macduff, had an idea that perhaps Macbeth did this. And he's actually right, of course, because he was like wondering, why would you kill the servants? They are the only ones who can tell us what really happened that night. Yeah, so there we go. But then Macbeth asks the witches, there are 3 things that he has to be careful of. The first one is beware of Macduff. That is the warning of the witches. Beware of Macduff. And we know why, because Macduff is already suspicious of him. The second one is the only person who can overthrow you and harm you is a person born of a woman. And then here Macbeth is like, okay, so I feel like I'll be fine because every person in this world is born of a woman. And the third apparition, yeah, these things are coming to him in apparitions. Like one is a armed head, one is a bloody child, like that. And then, so the third apparition told him that you will be overthrown. That day will come that you will be overthrown when Burnham wood or Burnham trees from Burnham come to Dunsinane. And Macbeth like even laughed at this. Oh well, he didn't laugh, but I think he found this funny, because how can trees from Burnham walk to Dunsinane? So it's impossible. Basically, he's very confident that he will become king for a long time and nothing is gonna overthrow him. But then this is what happens. Eventually, Macduff talks to the king's sons. I think Macbeth did this. Let's all join forces and attack his castle and kill him. So that was their plan. Then one of the messengers of Macbeth tells him that, my lord, I saw Burnham trees moving towards the castle. And that happened because Macduff and the other armies, they want to surprise Macbeth. They don't want Macbeth to know that they're going to attack him. So he got the soldiers to carry the Burnham wood. So literally, like, they were hiding behind the trees. So that is why the third prediction, or what the third apparition said is somewhat going to happen. Like, he's going to be overthrown soon. Macbeth was kind of shaken by that the third apparition's fortune coming true, but then he was still a little bit more confident because the second apparition said that he won't be killed by anyone born of a woman. So he's like very confident, whatever. Macduff comes, they come face to face, and Macduff actually tells him, dude, I'm not strictly born of a woman because I was untimely ripped from my mother's womb. So technically he wasn't born from the birth canal. And that is when Macbeth started to get scared. They have this off-stage fight, and then Macduff comes back with Macbeth's severed head. And that is why this is such a tragic story. Like, okay, he had 2 fortunes. One of them happened without his interference. The second one, he decided to interfere, and it led to his demise. And I think this is why we as people, we know our past because we lived it, and so that we can learn from it. But we don't know our future because the things that we might do to achieve or avoid that prediction or fortune or fate or destiny that we have, it might lead us to our own demise. Like, we don't know our futures for a reason. And if we know what the future is gonna be, like, we humans are so stubborn, we're either gonna try to meet that fate immediately, if it's a good one, or if it's a bad prediction, then we're gonna do everything that we have to do to avoid it. And that is why, we're gonna be so fixated about that. It's gonna conquer our lives, our present living. And I think that's why it's a blessing that we don't know what's going to happen to us, how we're going to die, or what we're going to be. And we have every chance every day to think about what to do to achieve what our aspired futures are gonna be. Yeah, so I really like Macbeth. Okay, the second book that I read is Us by David Nicholls. This is about a guy, a middle-aged man. His wife wakes up in the night and tells him that she wants a divorce. She thinks their marriage has run its course already. And so they have this one last Europe trip with their son Albie, like a last family trip to have fun. But actually, Douglas, the main guy, it's his idea to win his wife back. So, look at this. I did not expect to like this as much as I did, because it's from the male perspective. But literally, I chuckled like multiple times, like over a dozen times while reading this book, because the writing style, the dialogue, the tone, and the voice, impeccable. Even every character is funny. I mean, there's a funny part for every character and for every minor character that they meet along the way. Actually, I really enjoyed the ending of this one. Though it was not what I expected, it was much better because it's not as cliche as what was I was what? Ugh? Ugh. It's not as cliche as what I was expecting. There we go. Okay, so I finished 3 books this week, including Virgin Suicides, and I'll be doing an image wheel picker thing to choose the next books in my TBR. And actually, one of them I've added another book because I started reading it, and it's Dragon Reborn, the third book to the Wheel of Time series. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like I'll be reading The Dragon Reborn, and it ends with Us. I'm not so. Yeah, I probably will start I'll finish Dragon Reborn first before it ends with Us. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. I'm giving myself next week to finish these books. If not, if I can only manage the Dragon Reborn, that's fine. But yeah, I really want to get to this one as well. I really want to reread it and see if it's as toxic as people say. Because I read this before. I don't remember it being that toxic. But I was young, so. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. And I'll see you in the next one.